Hi, I wanted to do a quick video tonight. When I say that, my videos are usually never quick, but I had this idea for this video from something that somebody had wrote me, which was, do I have a right to live in any city I want? They basically were saying that if you can't afford it, the city shouldn't have to accommodate you. You just can't be there. That's kind of a form of discrimination, I think. And what I mean by that is that if the city is not accommodating poor people and not accommodating people that can't afford $2,000 a month for rent, that's basically income discrimination. But that's not what I wanted to do the video about. That gave me an idea for this video, which was why cities hate the poor. The reason that I wanted to do this video is because it seems like a lot of cities, Seattle included, are starting to price the rent so high that the poor people will not be able to afford to live there. And the state of Washington has made it in such a way that if an apartment building is owned by somebody and it's rent controlled, or it's a subsidized apartment, they can sell it to a new owner, and that owner does not have to go along with the previous rules. Therefore, they can turn it into fair market value apartments. In theory, that's okay. If they want to make buku dollars, more power to them. But when you do that, and you go from, say, you got to pay, say, $300 a month for Section 8, and it's an apartment that is no longer working with the city on low income, they can turn around and start charging $2,000 a month for that apartment, and if you can't afford to pay it, you're just screwed. Yeah, in theory, they'll give you what seems to be maybe a little bit of time to find another place, but let's face it, in a city like Seattle, it'll be very hard if you lose your apartment to find another one that'll be just as good or that'll be just as cheap. Now, if everybody was making $100,000 a year, I wouldn't care. But you have people that are making thousands and thousands of dollars a year, and they are dictating who can and can't be in their city. So my question is, why do cities hate the poor? Why do citizens that are transplants from one city to the next, because let's face it, you're not going to find somebody that's poor, knowing how Seattle is, you're not going to find somebody that's poor flocking to Seattle. And that's what I think the city wants. I think the city wants to be full of just Joneses, and they want to be full of people that are struggling to try to keep up with the Joneses. Whereas the poor, they cannot struggle to keep up with the Joneses, because the poor is just the poor. Now, I know there's going to be people that will bump into this video and they'll say, why do you keep constantly talking about the poor this, the poor that? Why don't you talk about the rich once in a while? Well, the rich are doing just fine. They don't need to be talked about. They don't need any help because they're already rich. It's the poor that needs the help. So I'm constantly doing videos that are trying to look out for the poor. Now, I've said this in the past, and I meant this. If I do not see a drastic change in Seattle between now and year 2020, I plan on moving back to Seattle, and I plan on running for mayor, and I will do it every time the election happens. I'll be a thorn in people's sides until they decide to either kill me or they decide to run me out of town, or everything gets fixed. And I was talking to some people earlier about moving to Seattle and why they wanted to move to Seattle. And they told me that the reason they wanted to move to Seattle was because, well, one girl said she moved because her boyfriend came for a visit to visit some friends and he fell in love with the city. Okay, I can kind of okay with that. I can kind of do that. But I did ask her a question and she hasn't responded yet. I said, if Seattle was not rich like it is now, if the cost of living wasn't this high, and if the rent wasn't this high, and everything was obtainable even for the poor people, would you want to live in Seattle? Now, there's some people that they like living in a city where it seems extremely rich. They like being in a city where they just like being in a rich city, and therefore they don't have to deal with the commoners, such as me, the pauper's budget. So again, why do cities hate poor people so much? It's almost as if the poor have no rights in the United States, that it's the ones that are working and the ones that are putting into society, and I get that. This one article that I read, it said that the poor don't know how to take care of their area that they live in, which is not true. There is a lot of poor that live like garbage, but there's some poor that were taught nice, and just because they don't have much money, they will take something that they have attained really inexpensive, and they will treat it like it was the Taj Mahal, and they will take good care of it, and they will even make it better than what they found it. There's other people that just, they don't have it within them. Whether they be rich or poor, they're going to treat everything like garbage. Now, I can understand why a rich city would hate poor people, because it reminds them that it's possible that they could fall into that trap as well. That if you're rich today, you could be poor tomorrow, and nobody wants to be reminded of that. And by having poor people in your town, you're basically reminding yourself that you're not invincible. You're human. I was watching a documentary on the Marx Brothers, and Groucho Marx was talking about the Great Depression that happened, and he said, we were wiped out. He said, I lost 200 grand. By today's standards, that would have been like 200 million or something. But back then, it was 200 grand. He said, we lost everything. I lost my whole savings, everything. My whole bank account was wiped out because of the Depression. Speaking of that, if people would have not been impatient, but they would have just took their time, settled down, and walked their way through this, the Great Depression, there wouldn't have been quite as much harm happen as there was. But the Great Depression was to get people that were semi-rich knocked off the ladder a little bit so they could become poor. The rich don't like competition. Cities that have rich folks don't like competition. People like Jeff Bezos doesn't like competition. So again, why do cities hate poor people? That was the subject. If you have something that you can say to talk about this particular topic that I'm talking about, you can leave a comment below. If for some odd reason you happen to like my videos and you like some of the content I have, but you think I can do something better, leave a comment. But please subscribe and like my videos if you do like them. I don't want you to like them just because I'm asking. I don't want you to subscribe just because I'm asking. But if you genuinely like what I'm doing and you think I've got a good start on my hands and you think I can get better, then like and subscribe in the comments below. Leave a comment if you think I can do better. If there's something that you want me to talk about, I will. If you don't like my video, just leave a comment and say, hey, this is why I don't like it. Your voice is annoying, your subject matter is annoying, or whatever it may be. Then leave me an idea on how I can maybe fix it, so we can converse on it. If you like my videos and you think you have something that can contribute and make it better, leave a comment. I'll talk to you. Like me or hate me. There's no such thing as bad publicity. Anyway, this has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things. Good night, Seattle, and all points beyond.